Hello, this is Curt Pringle, and thank you for tuning in to our Talking Issues series. We talk about a lot of issues here in these different programs, but one of the things that I really focus on much in my life is entrepreneurs, business, establishing business in this state and running business in California. And I guess I come around to that point because I grew up in a small business. My dad was in the dry cleaning business, and I worked there through high school and a little bit into college when we started making draperies. So yes, I hung a lot of draperies in my life and mini blinds. So I understand, hard work, working with your hands, being out in the field, doing things. And I really hold a special place in my heart for businesses like that. And today we're going to talk to somebody who really took a basic business that we all are aware of and made an empire, really a complete empire. So would you join with me in welcoming my guest today, Pat Mahoney with West Coast Arborist. Glad you're here, Pat.
Thank you. Yep.
I don't know if I really set that up right, but Pat's focus is trees, and we all have them. We all like them,
Love them.
and yet you have focused your entire career on trees and have really created a business empire that I really do want to focus on because it's a great story. So tell me how you started in the tree business.
This is our 52nd year, and I started in high school. Actually, I was walking home from high school, went to Tustin High, walking home from high school, and a gentleman, George Waldhauser, stopped me from walking home and said,
Yeah,
"Hey,"
people are told not to do that anymore. I know.
and said, "Hey, would you help me clean these trees up that I just trimmed?" So I said, sure, I would. And I was a sophomore in high school, and I worked for him after high school, after school. And then once I graduated from high school, I continued to work for him. And then 1973, he said, if you saved your money, you could buy me out. So I said, well, I saved my money. I'm ready. So I bought the business for $5,000 in 1973 and hired my brother and some high school friends and pushed the truck around Tustin,
Right.
doing residential, some commercial tree maintenance.
Right. So trimming trees, and tell me the art of tree trimming. I mean, I want to make sure I do trim my trees properly, or I'll hire someone like you to
being an arborist.
Yes.
And today, back when I started, it was guys with chainsaws and hand pruners just out whacking at trees. And today,
right.
And part of my story as you go along, they became certifying arborists. I helped lead that challenge to where today there's like 14,000 certified arborists out there, and really just the study of trees, and it's an art.
Yeah.
It's an art.
No, I understand that because it impacts trees. I mean, I understand how to trim a palm tree, but other things I know I do it wrong. So I want to make sure I have the right, skill set.
Right.
But your residential service to homes and businesses evolved into moving into what?
Working for cities. And
Right.
when I started, cities had their whole empires themselves. All the cities did their
Right.
own tree maintenance.
Right.
In the late mid 80s, early 80s, property tax changed, and cities had to start saving money. And what they did was started to privatize things out. So the first city we got a contract with was City of Tustin.
Mm-hmm.
And we hired two of their employees, brought them over to work for us, and start trimming their trees. And that was in, I think, mid 80s, and we've been trimming Tustin's trees ever since. But then from Tustin, we got another city. Fast forward today, we do over 300 cities in California, Arizona, and all over.
Yeah, no.
Growing.
See, and that is the interesting thing. I mean, now you're able to take this business and provide that service directly into, city government. And to me, to stop and think there's 450 some odd cities in California, and you're providing service in over 300 cities. That's crazy.
Yeah,
it's kind of crazy to wrap up.
Counties,
right?
Municipality.
Yeah. How do you how can you provide out of Southern California, and I know you have a Northern California office, how can you provide that service, which is a manual service and it's a professional service? How can you provide that in such a broad region and still make sure they're being done right and in a good way?
Yeah, I used to be a tree trimmer. Now I'm more a people person.
Right.
We've got 26 offices. We have these 26 area managers, 3 regional managers. But the way I describe it myself and a couple other, we get the plate spinning,
right,
which is get the contract going. Most of these contracts are 5-10-year contracts. We probably have 95% retention, but we get them going and then we pass it off to the area manager, and each area manager will run 10 to 15 cities. And if they have a problem, they call HR or they call the equipment manager, but plate's going to hit the ground. They call me and I come over and help
get the plate spinning.
Get it spinning again. But
yeah,
it's not ever, I'm asked that a lot. And I think over the 50 years, I get built layers of dealing with the different things. So as problems come up, I say, well, I did that 30 years ago,
right,
addressed it. But
yeah, and in this post-COVID time, every business that has people involved always feels a people shortage. So how do you have staff all over the state?
We 2 years ago we were Orange County large family business of the year for the Orange County Business Journal. Without it was Carl Jr., Ganal Lumber, a lot of real heavyweights. So we have a ton of family members. We have about 300 family members. And not just I've got a lot of my family, but I've got my shop foreman, his brother, his sister, his son working for us. So it's a big family feel.
So, but how many total employees do you have?
Today, 1,263.
Wow.
Yeah. Good.
And part of that is working for government. Do you feel the pressures of labor groups and unions and such?
Yeah, so 10 years ago, we were attacked. Actually, we worked in the state of Nevada. We did all the power line clearing in Nevada. The electrical union attacked us, or tried to unionize us. And eventually we pulled out of that because it was just such a big headache for us.
Yeah.
Came back in California, the labor's union came after us. And eventually they filed like a $200 million lawsuit and said we were paying the wrong wage, and it was all prevailing wage type stuff. So then 2 years into it, we finally agreed. Lou Correa took me to Sacramento. We met with Jerry Brown and the head union guys, and I agreed to join the union and turned out to be one of the best things besides marrying my wife. What's the best thing I did?
Yeah, make sure you get that base covered. So, right.
It turned out to be a great thing.
Right.
The state ended up adopting our union agreement in Northern and Southern California as the prevailing wage for tree maintenance in California. So for us, when the union gives a raise, everybody in the state that does tree work has to pay that wage. And in dealing with before Lou, for 2 years, hired different people to try to help me. I would go to Sacramento and have a meeting with the DIR. I'd have to sit in the hall while they'd have the meeting. My lobbyist or guy that would go up there with me. Then now I'm in the union and I'm a trustee on the union board.
Oh.
I go to Sacramento, and when I've been in a bunch of meetings with the contractor license board, now they don't start the meeting till they said, Pat Mahoney's in the house, we can start the meeting. So the union brought a lot of clout, or
right,
clout to it.
Yeah, but it, you can see both sides.
I go both ways.
Your wage might be higher, but that's what might buy the peace in the valley, and so you can understand that. But
exactly.
Businesses, I guess, as we step back, the larger they get, they face a lot of challenges of an operation.
Exactly.
And, you faced yours and you addressed it. So with that, does that mean you have a consistency of workforce and
Consistent workforce. They've got great benefits. The union brings that. It actually helps us with lawsuits, all the, employee type lawsuits. They're all under arbitration agreements, and the union solves all those problems. In the past, I had 3 or 4 class action lawsuits for wage and hour stuff. Now with the union help, a lot of that's resolved.
Yeah. In California, private attorney general actions and things like that face a lot of small businesses.
Right.
No question. I guess I've always known of your business, in my life because we have interacted in a lot of ways. But it was probably not until I was with you up in the wine country in Santa Barbara when we're sitting at a restaurant in Solvang and talking a little bit more about West Coast Arborists and your business. And you told me Solvang was a city that you had a contract with.
Correct.
And you shared with me how your business has evolved into technology and how a basic business that people may look at has simple steps involved in it.
Right.
But in fact, covering all the labor issues and workforce issues is one thing, but also adopting technology is a part. So, tell me what technology is involved in tree trimming and managing trees in communities.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
We've actually been called an IT company that happens to trim trees.
Right.
And part of the evolution of building it's one of the key things that gets us a lot of the work. But we started 30 years ago doing tree inventory. So we go out today, we GPS every tree site, and we set up these tree inventory systems. When we started doing the inventories, we started with a PC Junior. We would inventory the tree sites, and as we did the work, we would update the inventory, but we would mail a disc out in the early days to the cities, and they would then load the disc up. And one point, I remember we were doing work, we inventoried all the trees for the city of Los Angeles, and they had our software program, and they'd have a big sheet of paper, do not touch this machine, because it would take a week.
Oh.
They've got like 600,000 trees.
Wow.
But so we were doing a lot of tree inventories, but the cities could never update the inventories. They just never had the time. So we set up a procedure where we do the work, and then getting billed updates the tree inventory with the bill. So it's like the carrot that gets the inventory updated.
Right.
But we have, I think, 15 people in our IT department doing the tree inventory, bringing all of this technology where we track the vehicles, we have a lot of scores that we do. I think another key thing is at the end of the day, we call it our call-in, but we record all the income for each person in each area, and then later the inventories come in and we cross that to make sure that we've got all the billing correct. It's like a checks and balance.
Mm-hmm. So the cost of service, exactly.
We
you
know
bill
today
based
if
upon
we
that.
made money yesterday or not. Plus the cities, we update all of that stuff, that information. And we've got a funny story. We have about 15 people in our IT department. A good friend of mine is Billy Scuffington, owns Ben's Asphalt in Santa Ana. And he said, I want to do all this IT stuff you do. And so he said, can I bring my IT guy over and see what you do? See how you do it. So he came over, his IT guy, and we got about halfway through, and he said, Billy, here's the difference. Pat's spending about $200,000 a month on technology. You give me a $2,000, $3,000 job at a time,
Right.
and just feed him. So we have heavily invested in technology. We have now the tree inventories are on a handheld device that the guys carry in the field. They do a vehicle inspection in the morning. They find something wrong. It sends a service request to the shop, which opens up a detailed shop order for the vehicles. There's an accident. We know immediately. We have cameras inside and outside the trucks. We know the minute it happened. We know what happened to it, and then that gets uploaded too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just very fascinating, but also you showed me that you know that tree. So when you say a tree inventory, you know generally the age, you know the type of tree, you know the last service on that tree.
Yeah, if you get a chance, go to the city of Anaheim's webpage and go to their Public Works tree site. And
Really?
they have, where it started, the state of California has a general accounting. It's called GASB, I think, general accounting, where every city had to inventory all of their infrastructure.
Right.
Well, it turns out, I think Anaheim's trees are worth $60 million. But what happened, so part of that, they had to inventory, everybody had to inventory it. So we went out and we inventoried everything about the tree and the value of the tree. And that was, so it's, and it was 60 million. We're out with city of Tustin, the carbon that is sequesters, they're looking at selling those carbon credits to somebody that needs them.
Right.
So owning this tree population, but we've got so a resident in Anaheim can go to the tree site on Anaheim's. So what it's on Anaheim's site, but it's through a back door that ties into our computer system and gives the resident when the tree's going to be trimmed, how much the value of their tree, all the way down to, every time it was replaced, but tells the whole history and all about it.
And even on a liability side, right? I mean, that you can record any damage to the tree or any illness or diseases of the tree.
Exactly. So liability is something that's really what drives us getting the work. So all the cities, we indemnify. So the cities, every time a tree falls and hurts somebody or hurts a car, it comes a lawsuit. So the union used to be my biggest problem. Today, insurance is a huge problem for us. So a tree falls, we end up getting dragged into it, and whoever the lawyer is for the person that got hurt or that got damaged, they sue everybody, the city, us, the landscaper, but the cities pass the liability on to us. So we go out and sell the work. If the city doesn't do the maintenance, they can't defend themselves or the lawsuits.
Right.
So I got a funny story. So we're out selling this thing. I had a friend of mine that good friends with the mayor of Oklahoma City. So I go out to Oklahoma. We're looking at expanding into other states. Sit down with the mayor and the parks. And well, Oklahoma has tort reform, and the most you can sue somebody for if a tree falls is like $75,000 a city. And it's like they've got one tree guy doing the whole city, parks, golf courses. Here we do, like the city of San Francisco, they're spending $19 million, and it's all to keep from getting, it's to maintain the trees and have a beautiful, well kept, but it's also helps in defending the lawsuits. And we get, now we have it's like 500 million or 500,000 deductible suits, and these verdicts are nuclear. I mean, they're getting massive, big verdicts for something that it wasn't the city's fault, wasn't our fault, but somebody got hurt.
Wow.
And we're trying to work with the League of Cities and pushing with the Joint Power Insurance Authority to get some sort of tort reform. And that's, they've got a thing called the trail law. If a tree falls on a trail, nobody, you can't sue anybody. But tree falls in a city, everybody gets sued. And
so someone needs to figure out how to put more trails in cities. But we'll worry about that later.
That's the trick.
But it's interesting. What are the best city trees?
Okay, so.
No, seriously. Everybody has a different opinion of what's pretty, but probably jacaranda is not the top of your list.
So we've been working for Garden Grove for probably 40 years.
Right.
And early in the career, we were there. They were taking all the chamois ash trees out. And there was an old guy there and said, this is the third tree that was supposed to be the perfect tree. And they're taking out. Since then, we took out the chamois ash. They planted the ficus tree. It was supposed to be the perfect tree. you know, and there probably is no real perfect tree.
Right.
Moreover, some like a crepe, smaller trees, but the bigger trees, I have well, jackrabbits, people either love them or hate them.
Right.
But
If you park under them, you hate them. If you see them on the street where somebody else lives, they're beautiful.
Exactly.
So,
The camper tree, I
yes.
know Jolene and I just came back from Japan. I know you were there.
Yes.
And the camphor tree is like this national tree in Japan, and they had 1,000-year-old camphors that were just beautiful.
Right.
I know downtown Anaheim, Santa Ana has these great street trees full of camphor trees. So,
Yeah.
but that's a great tree.
Yeah. No, I grew up in Garden Grove, as you know, and we had on our street all the parkway trees were jacarandas, and they were big. And one, you can't park under them during
Right.
flowering season, but also when the winds come, 3 or 4 big branches break and fall. So obviously, when you're monitoring trees, you know which
What
ones you
happened.
can and cannot, plant for that
Right.
liability purpose.
For us, everybody thinks in storms we make more money, but really it's like taking the deck of cards and throwing it all over, and you just got to run around trying to do all of that.
Yeah.
But it's also advertisement to say, hey, you've got to trim the trees to keep moving forward.
Right. So a big question now is, what do you do with all the trimmings? What do you do with?
So all of the trimmings. One thing, we started a division called Street Tree Revival.
Yeah.
Here in Anaheim, we have 3 18-acre wood facilities. So the trees that we cut down, we're taking them to the wood facility. We're milling the lumber, and we're making wood slab tables, making furniture, but really we're providing the lumber, making lumber. But 4 years ago, we teamed up with Taylor Guitar, because Taylor Guitar was in trouble. They were cutting down all the trees in the rainforest, and they were in Cameroon, and they're getting a lot of heat for it. But during COVID, all of their wood suppliers got backed up, and they weren't shipping the stuff. So they came to us, and we sampled a bunch of different wood. And earlier I talked about the chamois ash in Garden Grove. Well, the chamois ash was a perfect tone wood for making guitars. So you go to Rolling Stone magazines, all kinds of articles out there. But we started milling the wood for Taylor Guitar, and now in our computer system, if a chamois ash comes up to be removed, we get a text that sends a note to, actually my son John runs, Big John
Right.
runs Street Tree, but he gets a text that says, hey, we're removing a tree. He'll go online, look at the photo of it, and then call the crew and say, hey, that's the tree for Taylor Guitar.
Oh.
And Taylor Guitar makes about 800 guitars a day, and that's because
Wow.
the necks are made out of I didn't think of the name of it, but out of
Some wood.
Yeah.
Got it.
but they can only cut that. There's only so many of them ebony. There's only so many of the
okay.
ebony trees left. So
Oh,
we're looking at making those out of eucalyptus red iron bark, but they're making 3,500 of these. It's called the Street Tree Guitar, and it's we get about $65 for the wood. They get $3,500 for the guitar, but it's been super popular.
wow. So I know you have online streettreerevival.com, and just it's almost unbelievable to think all of these beautiful trees around us, when they're serviced or when they have to be taken out, you're able to reclaim that wood for a purpose. And
Right.
so guitars, and I know you make that, natural edge,
Live edge.
tables and things like that.
Yeah, we've recently made a table for the city of Anaheim in their conference room upstairs.
Right.
And it's about a 24-foot table. We made a table for Walt Disney, trees that were being end of their life at Disneyland that Walt had planted. They made a table we made a table for their landscape department.
Wow.
Which was kind of cool.
Wow.
Yeah. So a lot of neat things like that happening.
Right.
If you go to the Grand California,
Yeah.
in their spa, all the wood is recycled from the street trees. that work here in Anaheim and put in there. One thing with trees, trees have a life. And the average life is about 50 years. And everybody wants to save all the trees, but what happens, there's some cities that have overly mature populations, which Anaheim's headed that way. Pasadena is definitely overly mature. So, but you need to really trim, we trim, remove, and plant trees, but you need to do about 2% of every year, remove 2% and replant 2% of the population. So Anaheim has 50,000 trees. Every year we're removing probably 500 of them and trying to plant 1,000 of them. Yeah. But otherwise it's like a family. Your family becomes all old at some point. Right. You got to just keep planting new stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Interesting.
No, it is. And again, you're sharing your expertise and actually this evolution of a business that some may think is a simple business, but has expanded and grown and taken on, new direction because of technology and change. I mean, in times past, most of what you're talking about was thrown up in the landfill and, filled that up, and nobody thought any different of it.
Right. Today we repurpose 100% of what we cut out of our waste.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
100%. Most of the brush, the heavy woody parts get mulched into ground cover.
I see.
We work with a couple bagging plants that actually bag, we produce it, we grind it up, and then it's bagged or colored and going back to the communities. And there's laws that you can't take any of that to the landfill anymore.
Right.
It's all got to be recycled.
Right.
And the tree trimming we have is like the top end of the green waste versus grass, and
right.
They have all the curbside pickup stuff that they'll mix our stuff with.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it really is fascinating. And I've certainly known you and known your business a long time, but getting a better understanding of what you do and where that business has evolved to is very exciting. So thanks for being with us today, Pat.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Yeah.